I'm Adriana Cowdin, and we're going to talk today about the PE Executive Blueprint Job Search Strategies. If you don't know me, I'll give you just a quick introduction, but then we're going to move on to building your personal brand, strategic networking, and turning interviews into offers. So for those who don't know me, again, I'm Adriana Cowdin. I've been an executive career coach for over 20 years and the founder of Be Bold Executive Coaching. I am a former PE executive. I was a CMO for a KKR Portco, so I know the chair you sit in, although not the finance chair. I did my coaching course through Harvard Business School in the late 90s and have had the luxury of being featured in some nice media, which you can look all that up later. Let's get on to what the most important content is. So first and foremost, let's talk about your personal brand. When it comes to the brand, what I like to always share is how important and valuable it is right now. So this is the difference between kind of a fleeting presence and being strategically achieving in your field. According to Forbes, it is no longer a luxury, it is imperative. And when you consider private equity, where you're often brought in to drive strategic turnarounds and maximize value creation, you really want to make sure your brand is aligned with that. Think of it as how you are represented or perceived when you're not in the room, right? So what's being said and what's being found about you online when you're not there. So unless people know you personally, what they think and feel, and in turn what they say about you, will be based on what they find online. If you're not owning that narrative, someone else is going to. And it's probably not surprising that CareerBuilder found 70% of employers research candidates online, and what they found online influenced whether or not the candidate moved forward. I think what's most important to say here is oftentimes our personal life and our professional life, and therefore our personal brand connected to that, are different. So if you're on Facebook or TikTok or Instagram or any of the other great social tools except LinkedIn, you might want to consider locking those down or marking them as private, at least for while you're searching for something. Up next are the 5 P's of personal branding. So you want to make sure it is personal, obviously, but from a perspective of what is really authentically you. Next, it should be pointed. You want to make sure you are talking about more than just being a senior finance executive in private equity. Sharpen your focus. Do you specialize on professional services organizations? Are you a specialist in international markets, for example? Next, prioritize based on what your values are. Is it most important that it is just private equity? Is it most important that you are the head of all finance? Is it most important that it is a mission-based organization, that it has certain revenue metrics? What are those values, and make those priorities? And then be purposeful. We have short time spans to catch people's attention in the land of blossoming ADHD. And so you want to be really purposeful with a narrative that has intent behind it. And those things will lead to a profitable personal brand. There are plenty of stories to share about people whose brands have turned plenty of profit to them. And I'm happy to share some of those, but I'm sure you know them. This is one I wanted to spotlight. This woman, Maria, is known for her book, Everything is Figure Outable. What I like about her most, although she's not PE or finance, she is kind of the epitome of what a brand can be when you look at inspiration. She leans entirely into being authentic and no nonsense and kind of limitless approach to potential in life. So how do you apply that in your own life? What parts of your personality can you integrate? Or do you feel that you have true authenticity? Do you take a no-nonsense approach? Do you take a very disciplined approach? Based on that, you craft a brand that's really authentic to you. And I often hear people say, well, what if I create this brand and it excludes some organizations or some people don't like it? That's okay. That's who you are. So I mean, God forbid you create a brand that's not authentic and you landed an organization that doesn't actually match up with you. That's not going to work out in the long term. So it's really about attracting the right opportunity that fits with you and creating a brand to do that. Moving on, LinkedIn, super important, as we know, not just for building your brand, but for thought leadership. So there are plenty of areas of LinkedIn that you can optimize, but at a minimum, your profile should absolutely have a very important and poignant headline. You have 240, old Twitter world, 240 characters. I always recommend you use about 180 characters and really talk about your personal brand components. Integrate private equity or PE into it and some kind of key financial accomplishment, whether it's EBITDA increase, cost reduction percentages year over year, the number of successful exits, etc. So that your headline jumps off the page, because that's what's going to inspire that hiring manager, that recruiter, or that opportunity to look further down. And the next part is your summary. It should be engaging and narrate part of your professional journey, but it should also showcase significant accomplishments using those facts and figures. And then you want to layer in core skills. I do get surprised pretty regularly when I work with CFOs. I will see a profile on LinkedIn on the summary section or experience, and it's missing like most of the numbers. So I'm not sure if that is something that is natural for finance people not to include them, but you do want to. Make sure you integrate your personality. How do you get those results? What makes you unique? And then some personal tidbits. So a good example, if you're someone who solves the New York Times crossword puzzle every day, talk about how your approach to solving the crossword puzzle on the daily is similar to your approach to solving financial puzzles within PE portcos, right? Make a connection that makes you stand out and jump off the page. That is relevant and memorable. Next, in your experience section, always include a brief summary and then your key results. 3 to 5 is plenty. Make sure your keywords and skills are up to date. Those are really critical to achieving that visibility on LinkedIn. And under the skills section, you can actually reorder those skills to the most relevant and highly endorsed first. So let me give you an example of that. Let's say the skill value creation is on your skills list and you have 99 endorsements for it. But for some reason, whenever or however it was added, it's buried. I'm not likely to see that as a recruiter or employer. So you want to pop that to the top. Let's say financial management, you have 99 endorsements for also. Great. You want to pop that to the top. But maybe the company is very focused, like many PE portcos are, on revenue and profitable growth, and you have 82 endorsements for that. That can be your number one skill. You can reorder them however you want. What I recommend is you pick the most relevant that also have the highest endorsements. And the top 5 that you choose, there's a section under your summary or your about section to include the top 5 skills. Little trick, once you have those top 5 identified, select your next 4 to 6 that are core competencies and include them in your summary. So your summary will have the about information, a little call out for key accomplishments, use some check marks just so it stands out, and then core competencies, and that'll be another 4 to 6 keywords. It's a cute way to like trick the algorithm into getting you more search visibility. And then finally, thought leadership is so important. Remember to publish articles, share insights, comments on posts. And I say this often, that if you have writer's block, use AI to spark ideas. And I actually had a session with a CFO this morning who's a client of mine in private equity. And he said, okay, I finally leaned into ChatGPT for a LinkedIn post, and I have to say I'm actually having fun doing it. So not only does this work, it's easier than you think. It's just a little uncomfortable to start, and that's okay. Learning new skills often is. And that's going to bring us to our first exercise. Claire's going to put you into some breakout rooms. Looks like we have 25 people. So Claire, let's do rooms of 3, however that works out, because I know you, Joyce, and I will not be in it. I will leave this on the screen so that you can see it. But the objective is to refine and articulate your executive brand and your thought leadership angle in a way that will attract those PE financial roles. In your group of 3, one person is going to be the speaker, one will be the listener, and one will be the observer. And then those roles will rotate. Each person takes 1 minute to do a personal brand pitch, answering the question, if a journalist wrote an article about my leadership impact, the headline would be, and filling that in. And you only have 30 seconds to explain supporting your headline. Then you move into 2 minutes total to do feedback and refinement. The listener that was in that role gives 1 strength and 1 area for improvement. The observer shares what stood out most, and you rotate those roles until all 3 of you have gone. And then debrief for 30 seconds on what surprised you about the feedback. So if you see that totals up to under 7 minutes, but what I'm gonna recommend, Claire, is that we do 8.5 minutes. Since we know some people are more chatty than others, please make sure you do give everyone time to speak though.